Michael Jackson's Thriller album.
Stories in the Room.
This is Michael Jackson's Thriller album, Stories in the Room. Join film composer Anthony Marinelli, who programmed synthesizers for 7 songs on Thriller, and A&R veteran film producer Stephen Ray, who assisted Quincy Jones and was in the studio every day with Quincy and Michael.
Michael Jackson's Thriller album, Stories in the Room.
I'm Anthony Marinelli with my longtime close friend and co-host, Stephen Ray, bringing you the real stories directly from the talented people in the room with us during the making of Thriller, the greatest selling album of all time.
Did you work with the Waters when you worked on the Jacksons? Because they go back before Thriller too.
I basically was just on the tracking dates. I wasn't there for any of the background stuff.
Okay, just curious.
Just tracking and some overdubs.
Right.
Bobby Colombi, that's who Greg produced it with. Couldn't remember.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right, Bobby, yeah. And I remember, Paul, what I was always so amazed, and Quincy was as well, when you were trying different things, your energy was always so up and free, and we would laugh, but you never took long. You would try things, and then Quincy would say, "Oh yeah, all right, yeah, and okay, what else you got?" And you wouldn't take. It would be like seconds later, you were like, "Oh yeah, let me. How about this? Oh, what about this?" And I remember once you leaving, you left. Your Cardish guy came and Quincy looked at me. He goes, "That's a bad man there, man. That's a bad boy."
Wow.
And I was like, "Yeah," because it was so. Because you were just your energy. You would come in, and you would just knock it out, and then you were gone, and you come back the next day for something else. And it was like, oh my goodness, we were always, and it was just, Anthony adding all that symphonic sound and film all of that atmosphere, and you just come in. It was such a joyous, time. Anthony and I, we use this word quite often, magical time,
Yeah.
And your contribution to that was so profound.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. It was. I appreciate that. That means a lot. But part of coming up with good parts, I tell people all the time, if you want a good guitar part, write a good song. Because if there's nowhere to go, it's like, okay, hey, I got the same chord for 32 bars. Go.
Right.
Okay, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go.
I did.
So
well, they I mean, Stephen could speak to this more, but the same way you were going through parts and trying things out, they were doing that with the songs too. Like Stephen could speak to that because he was there for the song selection, but he always says it was best song wins. So they were thinking of that, like what you said, like the songs were already weeded out. So by the time it got to the players and everything, they knew which ones were the good songs because they didn't. How many songs did they go through, Stephen? And not everything just fell onto the record, right?
There were 30 songs
demoed.
There were 30. So yeah. I mean, just like either demoed or ideas or sketches, and Rod Temperton always, when he came from the UK. He always came so prepared. He always had a pretty clear idea, and then Quincy would expand upon that in terms of arrangements, and of course, the great Jerry A. and with the horn parts and all that. But Rod would also sometimes, if it wasn't fully thought out, he would sing it like Michael would to you, Anthony, and like he did to you, Paul. He would sing the part. So it was always this great balance of let's see what we can do. Let's try this. Let's try that. And to your point, Paul, how it was so open and free, but you have to be inspired by a source. And if the source is great, to your point, if the song is great, then your inspiration to create something on top of that, and in addition to that, you're inspired. And you were inspired. Anthony was inspired.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that would inspire something else.
Yep.
Quincy would get an idea. Anthony would play something, and Quincy would get an idea. You play something, Paul, and Michael and Quincy would go, oh yeah, well, oh yeah, and it would just springboard from one thing to the next. And that type of experience in terms of recording doesn't happen as much these days, as Anthony and I always talk about, because everything's done. Everybody does a track, and then it goes from there, as opposed to creating the song first.
Right. Yeah, interesting you say that because we were working actually on the Bad record, and the guitar part I played on Dirty Diana was actually conceived by Jerry Hay.
There you go.
I think we were in Studio D actually on Santa Monica, and he said, "Paul, I have this idea for a guitar part. Let me see if it'll work." And I think the song was in do 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 do. I think the song was in, let's see, D flat, E flat. Song was in F minor, but he wanted me to tune my guitar down to C sharp so I could play this certain lick, and it worked. It worked fine. But he had come with the I can't play it right now. I can't think of the lick. I can't think of the lick, but he actually had written it out and said, "Hey, I want you to play this lick," and that was the lick that made it on the record.
Yeah, and you're just open to doing that. I mean, that there's all these. That's really collaborative, though. That's truly a collaboration.
Yeah,
Do you notice a difference in how songs were written back then and how they were produced compared to now? How you write a song? Because sometimes now you get a track and then somebody says, "Write a song over it." Whereas I thought most of the time before it was the opposite. But how do you find that to be?
I'm unfortunately a geezer. I tell my students all the time, this is a geezer reference. But to me, writing a song is starting with nothing and ending up with a piece of music. Not, okay, here's a beat and I need you to do something to this. Or, to me, actually writing a song, because the chords of a song will dictate how the song goes. Sometimes the actual beat, if you just, sometimes that will dictate where it goes lyrically. Sometimes there's a guitar part. In fact, interesting, so if you had a guitar part like what is it? Like Good Times. Well, that's an integral part of the song. Mm-hmm. It's not just a guitar part. And so my feeling is still somewhat old school, where it's like, okay, writing a song is starting with nothing and ending up with a piece of music. To me, that's writing a song. Be that, okay, you come up with the chords and I come up with the lyrics, and you come up with the melody and you come up with interesting story. Holland Dozier Holland. I talked to Lamont Dozier once, and I asked him, well, what part of the songs did you come up with? It's like, well, sometimes it'd be the hook, sometimes it'd be the verse, sometimes it'd be whatever. But, hook being the chorus, for those of you that don't know, that are watching the interview, the part that you can really, memorize and sing along. So the thing about it is, without a great hook, you don't have a great song. And so when we argue, well, he just came up with the hook. The hook's only 8 bars. Mm. But if that's the thing that people remember, and that's the thing that made it a hit song, you can't really put a price on that. So, sometimes you're going to write more lyrics than the next guy. Sometimes you'll write more melody than the next guy. Sometimes you'll come up with this or that, but if it's kind of like if you cooked a chicken, okay, I got the right temperature, I got the right oven, I've got the right pan, mm-hmm. I've got everything, and I'm getting ready to stick it in the oven, and somebody says, did you season it? What's that? A shake of this and a shake of that. Now you can bake it. Now you can cook it. And you say, well, gee, they didn't put much effort into it. Yes, but the effort that they put in made the difference between a horrible meal and a great one.
Well, flavor.
And so that's how flavor, bam, bam, there it is. So that's my right. That's my feeling about songwriting, is that you start with nothing, and you'll have a different amount of involvement than this guy, but you end up with a piece of music, yeah, so I'm somewhat old school when it comes to that.
Join us for the next episode of Michael Jackson's Thriller album, Stories in the Room, with your hosts, Anthony Marinelli and Stephen Ray. Watch our extended interviews on youtube.com/@StoriesInTheRoom. Audio-only interviews are available on all podcast networks. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok @StoriesInTheRoom. For the latest news and links, visit the website, storiesintheroom.com. This podcast is produced by Christian D. Bruun and David Wolf, recorded by Audivita Studios. Additional recording by Ben Rackless. Edited by Jay Spang and Sean Hedinger. Music by Anthony Marinelli and Stephen Ray.
Michael Jackson's Thriller album.
Stories in